Hello and welcome, as it is Valentine's Day, 14th day of February 2018. It's a lot of different days. It's Higher Portfolio Day. And for wrestling fans, it is Rusev Day today. Anyway, Litecoin prices up to 2.25. Interesting number because it was stabilizing. This was a key support mark. 250 was its general area of where it consolidated from after its previous big move higher. When we take a look at this cross against Bitcoin, I know the lines will get in the way a bit, but price action is at levels not seen since the 2015 small Pierce high. So basically, I'm not going to say we're at all-time highs, but we're now back to the spring of the 2014 levels. So we're doing fairly well within the Litecoin. Now, the lines I brought in have just been doing fantastic as far as how they're playing out. Every single one of them has big levels of support, big levels of resistance, big areas of just playing with the story of this market. When a level's not resistance or breaks it like such, you have the fast move to one like the other. It has just been magnificent. Even as I look at this short term and I see the prices at 240, I got to pause the tape quickly, so I'll do that now. And I'm back. I had to do that because I would have lost my train of thought. But yeah, this thing is just going fantastic right now. The next key level is right around the 248 level. I haven't got the next ones in, but man, I'm impressed, but I'm not surprised. I'm most certainly not within this kind of action. Now for myself, being that it is starting the third week of February, this means the 1-year anniversary of crypto trading for myself is going to come upon, as it was the end of the third week last year when I begun. I made some realistic, I thought, hefty goals for the first year, which is basically ending now, or I'm on day like 361-ish or so of my trading. But my goal was to outperform the cryptocurrency market by a good chunk. Let me put in the US dollar chart because that would be the best way of showing it. I wanted to outperform it by 40 times over. That is insane. But when I was doing 1.01 to the root of 365, I realized if I could manage 1% a day, long term, and I think it's not out of reach, it can be possible. Well, I'm right around 38 so far. So I'm really impressed that things have basically gone as expected. That's not normal for me when I do these kinds of things, so it's been very impressive to say the least. Another plan that I had was to turn a decent 3-figure starting level, which is how much you might want to bring to a casino with you. But I want to play a casino with good probability odds, and well, my plan was to turn 3 figures into a nice 6-figure level. Success. Was able to do so. I guess the only regret I could say that I may have had is I did have enough where I could have put in more, maybe 3, 4, 5 times higher, especially if I would have sold a little bit of silver. I sold none. Okay. I've managed to buy quite a bit of it back. And it's interesting listening to a lot of silver and gold bugs talking about how cryptocurrencies are such a waste of time and Ponzi scheme, and that they love the precious metals so much. Yet a means to an end. The amount of gold and silver you can purchase by trading cryptos is magnificent. Well, this year, as we're going to move forward for myself, I have what I consider a very good portfolio, given that it's 6 figures. And I feel I can easily outperform the Bitcoin market 20x, especially if Litecoin does what it does, and it's just going to be a formality that's going to do much more than that, which is interesting how high this could go. But I would like to turn 6 figures into an 8-figure with the first number starting with at least a 2. So I want to make about 20 million. And oh my goodness, that's like large. That's what NBA starters make, or NFL quarterbacks and top players. Yeah, that's what they make. So that's my goal for the upcoming year. Realistic? Yeah, it is. Insane? Depends on what your version of insane is, because the movements of these markets have been just that. But the reason why I'm going over this is because when you make your goals, be realistic with the realistic movement. Volatility is sick within this game. Go for positive strategies that you feel can give you the returns. And what's your most probable outcome? Projected. I don't know what word I was trying to use there. I was probably trying to use a word that didn't exist. But what's your projected outcome for probability going to derive for you? And there is extreme profits in which are available. So when you get started within this, you could get started at the wrong time. Start in here and you're down. I gave some Litecoin back in here when the price was 220 and change. Well, you know what? They're back to even now. And you can have situations where you start and you might take your first little bit and hit a bit of a downswing, because the market's going to go up and it's going to go down, and it's basically enjoying the roller coaster ride as it plays out. However, as time moves on and we look at it in different aspects, you could have started in here and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm down here. Oh, but you're feeling good up here. And then when you get to these situations, you're up here, you're doing well. And especially if you're outperforming the market, when you move down here, you're going to notice your portfolio is much, much lower, but you're doing well in comparison to where you started and where you were even when you broke this resistance. Because if you were, say, worth 10 units in here, you come back, you should be maybe worth 11 or 12. And then, of course, this happens, you're just in happy land like no other. How are you going to handle this kind of correction in here? Is it going to be a situation where you've been in this game in here for a while, and you noticed with your Bitcoin holdings and a bunch of other coins that all went down together, that your portfolio took a dive of maybe even greater than 50%? Yet, and the only way that you can obtain those insane numbers that I talk about is to be able to handle some wild down swings. If you want to outperform the market 1,000 times over, and then you're going to have to handle some significant withdrawal down periods here and there as well. Switch this back again to the cross with Bitcoin, and it's just breaking out in the 5-minute. But life-changing amount of income is totally available. And the more focused you can remain, the more conscious you can see towards mistakes that you may make in your trading. And then when you look back, I'm like, okay, don't be calm. You make a mistake, no big deal. Fool me once, fool me twice kind of analogy is where you need to think, and just don't get fooled again. And then learn from mistakes. And when you see major amounts of profits coming in, okay, that was a correct play. I'm glad it happened. And I quickly just had to pause the tape again because my phone was going crazy. But I know I'm talking about portfolio management, being focused as far as being ready for this situation so that you can get yourself enabled to make the larger profits come into play. It's an amazing world that we have a situation like this because it's never been available. I'm going to talk a bit now about comparing this a little bit with like poker, for example. Back in the old school days, Doyle Brunson in Texas, when playing in all the smoky rooms where there was some decent stakes available, but you could only play so many games a day. and there was only so much only so much you could profit. And then online poker comes in, and although the competition can be much more difficult, you can get a lot more volume in. Well, now we're able, with this volatility, to be able to get market moves that normally take years to make that can happen in days within these markets. So the way I look at it is you're able to build up a year's portfolio, even 3 or 5, 6 years of returns in maybe a few months. You're able to make or get the volatility movements in a couple, 3, 4 days you normally get in a month. So that's amazing opportunity within these style of markets. I also like to talk about, I don't play with scared money. When I go to sleep, I like to sleep tight. I know the markets are going to move. I know my orders are always placed well, because that's what I make sure when I go to bed. Okay, are my orders incorrect? Is there anything that's going to cost me? And then I usually don't make too many mistakes. Because of it, I sleep well, and then I'm just never really on scared money. I remember playing poker back in the day, and I swore this person was Greg Raymer. This would have been just a couple years after he won the World Series of Poker, but I don't think it was him. It was at a small Canadian poker room where $2 and $5 blinds, you buy it for $500. So the stakes were relatively not that large. And for me, it was my normal size stakes, but I learned not to play with scared money. I also was still am, a very aggressive poker player. I like to play a lot of pots, splash around, make a lot of raises. So he came up to me and he said, you know, these are some pretty serious stakes. He's talking to me like I'm not taking the game seriously. And I thought for a bit there, and after a while I'm like, this is exactly right, because I knew then I was playing without any fear whatsoever. And I knew my aggressive strategy was getting right to those players. They had a hard time dealing with some of the amazing plays in which that I made, because I realized if I do this, net result should be such. And the same thing in this game. You realize to yourself, if you do this type of strategy or this type of play, the net result should bring something like, and then whatever it might bring, and then that's what it is. And you play it with confidence and without fear. That's how I play the markets. And I've been in the game of trying to make bankrolls grow larger for quite some time. I've done it before, and I'm doing it well, of course, within this one again. So even though I am finishing my rookie year in trading, it really, really isn't. I've traded before, but really not so much, at least on the equity markets. I've studied a lot of charts before, but never like I have within the last year. And I've managed bankrolls my entire life, so I'm totally used to doing those sort of things, and I'm definitely not a rookie within those kind of measures. Experience is always going to help you out. And if you're starting, one thing to just keep aware of when you're going on with this, especially when you start lower stakes with plans to expand them later, realizing that lower stakes in early trading of the game will mean your mistakes will cost you less, is that you're going to learn and figure so many different things out. Like, oh my goodness, this is possible. Wow, I can profit a lot on it now that you figure it out. A lot of those things are going to just enter into basically the human brain. Thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.